Hi everyone, thanks for joining this Trident Talks Black Hat Spotlight edition. I'm Max Horseman, I'm a principal consultant here at Trident Search, and I'm joined by James Wickett, CEO and co-founder of DryRun Security. Thanks for coming on board, James. How's prep coming?
Hey, thanks, Max, for having me. Really appreciate it. Yeah, we're getting really excited for Black Hat, and just a few weeks ago we were going to Black Hat, but we weren't for sure we were going to be in the startup spotlight competition and get the booth and get all the swag ready and all that sort of stuff. So it's been a bit of a flurry over here on our end, but the team's really excited to be able to show everybody at Black Hat what we've been working on and how we're kind of taking a new approach to doing like code level security.
Yeah, I'm sure it's only going to get busier as well in the couple of weeks that we've got left.
Yep.
And look, for those that aren't familiar in the audience, can you please kind of run a brief introduction of DryRun Security?
Yeah. DryRun Security. We're doing like code analysis as people are writing and committing code inside of your environment. So for developers, they're getting feedback, kind of code reviews, like in just a few seconds to like what kind of security problems that might be relevant. And for AppSec people who are often like really understaffed, usually have like 100 to 200 developers per AppSec function. They're able to ask and understand like where the risk really is in their system. They don't have to mess with like writing more rules or learning a new SDL or doing a bunch of tuning to get that value. So we really see us like as working for both sides of the equation here. So a lot of times the people who bring us into organizations, like their AppSec or product sec, and they care about like helping security, move for their developers. One of our customers said, they're like, oh man, it feels like you've cloned, our AppSec person, Steve here, right? You've cloned him, and like you're doing some of the stuff that he always does, right? And I'm like, yeah, well, the problem is like you can't have that person, do hundreds, thousands of pull requests in a week. Like that's just not attainable for somebody, right? So they have to pick and choose. And yeah, that's really kind of the ethos behind like why we started the company. I don't know if you want me to get into that, Max, but I can. But yeah.
Yeah, look, I think it'd be great to understand a bit about the kind of journey so far and kind of why you kind of set out to kind of start DryRun Security, right?
Yeah. I've always been in the space myself where I've cared about security. I was at Signal Sciences, but I've been like I'm an old AppSec person. Like, and I live in Austin, Texas, and I used to run the OWASP AppSec chapter here, like think I don't know 2007, like long time ago, right? And then I helped start like LastCon, and I've been in the security space here. But my co-founder Ken Johnson is also a longtime AppSec person. He wrote Rails Goat. That's how we became friends because I needed a speaker here in Austin, and I was like, hey, you want to come speak? And I liked Ruby and Ruby on Rails at the time a lot, and so we became friends over a decade ago, and kind of just we're noticing like we have this chronic problem where people are it's not even like understaffed, because like that's not really fair to say, because I think like staffing is not really always the problem, but like you have your developers committing hundreds or thousands of times in a week, and you don't really know what's risky or what's not. And often, Max, I'll get on a call with somebody and I'm like, yeah, like, look, we'll find some of the stuff like cross-site scripting or SQL injection or whatever, right? And people like, okay. But like, everybody has their own top three. Like they're inside of their organization, they have the things that have really like they've either paid out really big bug bounties for, or they've had to pay out bug bounties on the same issue over and over and over again, just like spaced out over a few months. I think of that as like Conway's Law for security, but that's another topic. But we also see like where organizations are, like they'll like breaches or just other pieces of data that they really care about. And here's two stories I think that'll like say like exactly why we started the company. So I have a friend. He works at a large social media site that everyone on the planet knows, and I was talking to him, and he was explaining like that. He was doing some code reviews. I was like, cool. How's that going? Oh, well, it's all right. I mean, the developers built their own RBAC for these API endpoints, and so like that's not awesome. And I'm like, oh yeah, why did they do that, or how did they do that? And he's like, yeah, it's real like doesn't work the way you would want it to work. And so I'm putting a bunch of instrumentation to like watch changes. And I said, can you just tell them like you got to use something off the shelf or use a library or something like that? He's like, no, they built their own, their own bespoke one because, and there's nothing I can do about it. And when I, asked further, he's like, well, look, it's March. They started on this thing in September. I had no idea. Nobody from security had any idea. Now this is like not just some, stodgy company or whatever. This is like a really engaged AppSec team that's like really trying to help people out. And he's like, they didn't know that they were doing like kind of an anti-pattern, right? They didn't know that they were building this component. And so now, they've already got 6 months of, sunk work in it. And all I can do now is just like support them, alert off of it, try to like do a bunch of monitoring and do all that kind of stuff. And so it's like, okay, yeah, that's not great, right? So none of those commits that they made had cross-site scripting, SQL injection, IDOR, any like the OWASP top 10, right? They were building a valid piece of code, but it was extremely bad, or it's an extreme like business logic problem, right? That you would have said like, hey, like maybe don't do that. Okay, so that's one. So kind of hold that in your mind. And then on the other side, we're doing these, like we'll install with customers and then we'll kind of do a review with like the CISO, or director of security or head of AppSec or CTO or whoever wants to come to that call and say, okay, look, we've been running, we've seen hundreds or thousands of pull requests through our system, and here's what we've noticed. So we do our normal, like you got your hard-coded credentials and your leak secrets or your other problems that we found that are very security related. And then we kind of lean in with this person. And we're like, all right, and they have about 130 to 150 developers, kind of in that ballpark. And I think we looked at like a couple, like maybe 600 to 1,000 pull requests. I can't remember off the top of my head, but something around that range. And we said, hey, they're like an umbrella company with like 8 different sub properties or underneath them. And we said, did you notice that like you changed out your payment gateway or do you changed out your payment gateway for, one of these sub properties? And the person kind of leans in and is like, this is the director of security. I've heard we might be doing that. And I'm like, 37 commit says it's already done, like it's done. He's like, oh, okay. Yeah. And then we get to the next one. I'm like, did you also realize that like you swapped out your single sign-on provider for this other sub property? And he's like, I did not even know, considering doing that. What commits are those? Like what's going on? And starts like figuring that out. It's not this person's fault. You're outnumbered, right? No single person can look at in a 2-week window 600 fresh commits written by 150 developers. It's like an insurmountable amount of work, right? And those both of those scenarios, like those are risky for the business. They're important for us to know about like what's going on, but they don't have like discrete cross-site scripting, or they don't have like they're a different shape, right? So we've been working on our code behavior analysis, so we can answer like traditional OWASP AppSec stuff, but then we're also like where we can offer like pattern or not pattern, but code behavior type analysis. So we think of like you're not writing you're writing questions of your code. You're not like having to stop writing a bunch of patterns. So we're using natural language filtering on that. So that's kind of how we got to the problem space, how we started innovating, how like both Ken and my careers kind of started triangulating around this problem. And we're like, man, security code reviews are just not easier for people. Like developers are still not really having a good time. AppSec people really feel like it's there's just a lot of maybe not noise, but like there's just so much to wade through in like the code velocity and the way that people are shipping code these days, that like there has to be a different and better way to do it.
No, I totally get it, and I see exactly how it can scale, right? It just makes perfect sense. Okay, cool. Well, look, as one of the kind of 4 finalists for the Black Hat Startup Spotlight Award, you must be pretty excited about that. I'd love it if you can just talk about, where people can find you at Black Hat and a little bit more about that competition.
Yeah. So we got a booth in the Startup City, and we're going to be in SC 318, and so we're excited about that. So we'll have that booth there. We'll also be presenting at the competition on Tuesday. I think it's at 4:30 in the afternoon at the Innovators Investors Day, and then we'll be exhibiting like the Wednesday and that Thursday. I don't know when we're speaking at the like on stage, but there'll also be some schedules for that. DryRun Security, DryRun.security is our website. We're on LinkedIn and on Twitter or X, I guess. And then also my last name is Wickett, which is kind of a unique, but that's my handle on everything on GitHub and on X or LinkedIn. So you can just find me there.
Cool. Well, we'll put a link under the video for anyone that wants to follow DryRun Security. I'm sure your marketing team will be posting stuff as we build up to the event. And appreciate you coming on board, James. Look forward to seeing you in August.